Diana Rossini put out this post on August 22nd on Thursday morning. And, this came after a couple of trades had already come in as we get to roster cutdowns, which is going to actually be on August 27th. So if the Saints do end up making a trade, we got you covered. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. And in today's video, I'm going to go through 5 trade targets that could help New Orleans get back to the postseason and win the division. But I have to remind you, subscribe today so that way you do not miss a thing around your favorite football team. Now, trigger warning right here, because I always get this in the comments section. This is not clickbait. This is not ridiculous nonsense. This is players who could possibly get traded, and I think that the New Orleans Saints should at least kick the tires and make a call, because these 5 players could immediately make a positive impact on the Saints roster. Now, the first one, it's going to be a really juicy name, and it's a really juicy guy. Giggity, it's Trent Williams, the offensive tackle out in San Francisco. And why I'm calling him a trade target? Well, in San Fran, he is actually skipping training camp with the 49ers, and this is also going on while all of the Brandon Ayuk trade rumors or extension talk, all of that is happening as well. So in my opinion, it's an unlikely move, but my question is, can San Francisco keep Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk? They have a lot of cap space, so I'm not necessarily worried about the finances of it, but are they going to want to max out their cap space right now when they could possibly continue to keep cap space around and build around Brock Purdy? And a really cool stat that I found on PFF, there has only been 6 sacks allowed by Trent Williams since 2020. He didn't allow a single sack last year. He allowed 4 in 2020, and he's allowed 1 in 2021 and 1 in 2022. So that's really, really impressive stuff from Trent Williams. And he would immediately make this team much, much better. He would improve the offense, and he would answer the questions around the offensive line, at least at the tackle position. You could have Trevor Penning take a seat, step back, and have Trent Williams and Talise Fuanga be your starting tackles. And then on the interior, you have Eric McCoy at center, Cesar Ruiz at right guard, and you still got to figure out that left guard spot. But hey, this at least gives you the ability to have 2 quality tackles on each side. One obviously being a rookie, but one being a very talented veteran in Trent Williams. Now, to be quite honest, I'm not necessarily sure San Francisco would want to move on from Williams. I don't think that this is a parting of ways that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch want to see come in the near future. But I do think that if you were to trade for Trent Williams, it would be very expensive, not just in terms of the compensation, but in terms of the contract and the money that you would have to pay him. I think he would be worth it. It would be very expensive, but I do think it's unlikely. Now, another player who possibly could be on the trade block, let's talk about Davante Adams. And why I'm talking about Davante Adams, well, remember that show Receiver on Netflix? That's kind of where I'm going with this. So if the Raiders do have a slow start to the season under new head coach Antonio Pierce, who was the interim last year and is now the full-time head coach, maybe the Davante Adams could be a top trade target as we get closer to the trade deadline. Now, right now, I don't think that the Raiders are looking to trade away Davante Adams, but let's say we get to week 5, week 6, and the Raiders only have 1 or 2 wins. Maybe this is a conversation that we could revisit because of the obvious connection with Derek Carr and because of this quote right here that aired in one of the episodes of Receiver on Netflix. I got to get the F out of here before I lose my effing life. This is coming in because Davante Adams was taking a lot of hits. He wasn't getting a lot of production. And at the end of the day, the Raiders were just not setting up Davante Adams for success, and thus not allowing Davante Adams to set up the Raiders for success. And I do think with the wide receiver group in New Orleans, you could bring in Davante Adams, and he would be an excellent complement to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. And by complement, I don't mean he would be the second or third option. I think he would be your wide receiver 1. But I think that it would be an excellent fit alongside Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, especially A.T. Perry, too, who I think is a really underrated player in my personal opinion. Now, I want to ask you this question, and I want you to get down in the comment section because I'm going to be interacting with all of y'all. Do the Saints need to add a wide receiver? We looked at the depth chart. There's some high-end talent, but the low-end talent, it's kind of underwhelming. So if you think that the Saints should go make an addition at wide receiver, let me know who that player is. It could be a trade. It could be free agency. I don't care. I want you to get creative and let me know. So another player that I think New Orleans should make a call at least for is former LSU Tiger Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's the running back 2 out in Kansas City. And it's pretty cool, the story for him. He is actually from Baton Rouge, and he went to LSU and was a first-round pick back in 2020 by Kansas City. And, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think he showed some really good things early in his career, but since Isaiah Pacheco has joined Kansas City, he's kind of taken over as the running back 1. And to be honest, I do think with Edwards-Helaire, he would actually be a good fit in the running back group, because Alvin Kamara, he's your do-it-all back. He's really, really talented. Jamal Williams, he's your bowling ball. But I think that when it comes to Kendre Miller, you don't have a lot of faith in him making a lot of impact on the offense. He's dealing with a hamstring injury once again, and with him, we don't even know when he's going to return to practice. So Jordan Mims could be slotted at running back 3. And in my personal opinion, Clyde Edwards-Helaire could add a little bit more juice than Jamal Williams and Jordan Mims. I would rather have Edwards-Helaire and then one of those 2 guys, whether it's Williams, whether it's Mims. You could convince me to go either way, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be a good fit. And on top of that, it's actually a pretty affordable player. He's on a 1-year, $1.35 million contract with Kansas City because the Chiefs did not exercise his 5th-year option. So with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe the Saints, they have some worries and they have some issues with their running back group, and maybe they like Jordan Mims, but you could also go and get a guy who has first-round talent, and he could be a potential RB2/RB3. So maybe that's worth at least a call, because who knows, maybe Kansas City could look to get at least another draft pick or another player, and maybe the Saints could go and add another running back. So coming up next, I got another trade target. One's an offensive tackle and one is a wide receiver, and these are actually pretty realistic names if you ask me. But before I get to that, got to give a special shout out to Game Time. And if you like going to live events, you have to check out the Game Time app. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets to your favorite live events. When you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS, you will get $20 off your first purchase, and you can use those savings to get yourself some merchandise, get yourself some refreshments, or, hey, go get an extra ticket for one of your friends. I'm personally looking at getting tickets to some of these college football games as we get closer to the season, but if you want to get tickets to a New Orleans Saints game, a Tulane football, or LSU game, you can get started with Game Time. Terms do apply. Create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS. That's code CHATSPORTS, and you'll get $20 off today. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So Treylon Burks, here's the wide receiver that I was going to discuss as a trade target. Davante Adams, that one's kind of unlikely, but with Treylon Burks, this is a name that actually could make some sense. I think that he would fit the exact need that the New Orleans Saints have at the X receiver. Ever since Michael Thomas has been dealing with injuries and now he's no longer with the team, that's a void that the Saints have been trying to fill. And with A.T. Perry, he's 6'5", 210 pounds. Treylon Burks, 6'2", 255. So a little bit bulkier, but not as tall. In Tennessee, this offseason, they went and added to their wide receiver group. They brought in Calvin Ridley. They have DeAndre Hopkins. So maybe this is a player that they could possibly offload and say, you know what, it hasn't worked out quite yet for us, so maybe we move him on and give him a change of scenery. We try to get something in return. And trust me on this, I know that the stats have been underwhelming, but I was at the University of Arkansas as a student watching every single game in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium, and Treylon Burks is a baller. You can mark my words. The stats are wildly underwhelming. I understand that. That is a true statement. But let's think about everything that's gone on with the Tennessee Titans. They don't really have a quarterback. They've moved on, or they have a new head coach now, new GM. This is a situation that maybe could improve with the change of scenery. And I think that this possible wide receiver group, if the New Orleans Saints decide to roll with 6 players as a pass catcher for wide receivers, I think this wide receiver group is excellent. because you still get to utilize Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and A.T. Perry as your top 3 guys. But you can line up Treylon Burks in the slot. You can line him up outside. You can have him be that physical, big-bodied guy that can dominate next to Bub Means and Cedric Wilson as well. And at the end of the day, I know that not everyone's going to be a fan of that idea, but hey, this is my show. I went to the University of Arkansas. I'm damn proud of it. Graduated with 2 degrees and a minor, so hey, woo pig, baby. I'm going to talk about my boys if I want to, but I also think Treylon Burks could, maybe make some sense. Let's get to Jack Conklin, the last offensive tackle and the last trade target in today's video. Jack Conklin is a player who has actually been dealing with significant injuries over the past couple of seasons, and since 2020, he's missed 30 games for the Cleveland Browns. So why he actually might be a trade target, he's a really good player, and he's a quality offensive tackle, but the injury concerns are something that Cleveland, I feel like, might be getting a little fed up with. And on top of that, they've had DeJuan Jones wildly step up and take huge leaps in his on-field production, and they're starting to have some faith in him as a young offensive tackle as well. And to be honest, it is tough to see and rare to see offensive tackles and quality offensive tackles, for that matter, get traded. So that's where I'm kind of have my reservations on this actually happening. But I do think it's a realistic plan or a realistic idea because the Browns have their starting guy. And here's the cap hit, $10.56 million. It would max it out, but the New Orleans Saints could afford it. They need to restructure a couple other contracts. They can. But this is an affordable contract. The New Orleans Saints could pay this entire contract for this year. Again, it would max out the cap space for 2024, so you're not going to be able to make any other moves until you create more cap space. But for right now, this is a possibility. And when you have roster cutdowns coming up, you're going to move on from some people, and that could also free up a little bit of cash. So, maybe Jack Conklin actually could be worth giving a call, and the Cleveland Browns maybe could be willing to move on from him. Now, it is no mystery that the Saints' offensive line, it's not good. It's young, it's unproven, and at the end of the day, it needs to be better. And I think that if you were to go and trade for a player like a Trent Williams or a Jack Conklin, it would immediately make a positive impact. The Saints' offensive line, for me, is the weakest unit and the unit that has the most question marks. So if I can ensure that my offensive line is just a little bit better by trading for an offensive tackle, I might be willing to do it because I'm not necessarily comfortable sending Trevor Penning to be my starting right tackle. Oluudo, maybe, probably not. I think it makes some sense to at least go and trade for an offensive lineman. Now, friendly reminder, here are the 5 trade targets we brought up in today's video. But I want you to get down in the comments and say, who was your favorite trade target? Let me know what you think down below. And while you're down there, I have the link to my Twitter account as well. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And if you follow me, the handle's at Trace Girouard48, and you DM me your favorite current player, I'll give you a follow back and a shout out on a future video. So hit me up on X/Twitter. It's Trace Girouard48. And y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.